want to start by kind of talking about our the holiday that is coming up. That is the next holiday in the docket for us, which is April Fool's Day. And is that not? I think of it as a holiday. I don't know. But I think, it's interesting because we have holidays like New Year's, which is an opportunity to reflect and think about the ways in which we want to, the intentions we want to bring into the new year. And then we have Valentine's Day, which is an opportunity to tell the people that you love the most how much you care about them. And then we have April Fool's Day, which is this excuse to visit cruelty and hurt upon the people we love with impunity. So it's interesting. I don't know why, what is it about us that makes us want to do this? But I do know a little bit about how we got here. See, in the 1500s, there was a pope named Pope Gregory who implemented a change in the calendar. You might have heard of the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar that we use. And essentially, it puts January as the beginning of the year. Before then, many cultures actually had the new year starting right about now, end of March, beginning of April. And so what happened is they implemented this change, but of course, it took a while for word to spread about this change. It was the 1500s, so they didn't have internet, right? They didn't have, cell phones. I think they maybe had pagers, but those are very unreliable. So it just took a long time for people to get the memo. And so what happened was if you were someone who didn't know that the New Year is being celebrated in January and you were still celebrating it in April, you were considered an April Fool, okay? And here's what they would do. I'm not kidding. This is crazy. They would draw a picture of a fish and stick it on your back, okay? People in the 1500s were wild, but if you think about it, having the new year begin in April kind of checks out, right? We have the spring equinox, and it's really this time of rebirth, an awakening. And so in some ways, there is this sense of new beginnings that we feel now at this time of year. I think we should go back. I think we should go back to, celebrating the new year at the beginning of April. I'm not proposing that we call it the Jakean calendar or anything. It's not my idea. I'm drawing upon earlier ideas. But what I do think we should do is if we did that, we could, go to everyone who celebrates in January still and call them January Fools, okay? And we could put like a picture of a fish on their back, But, there's something about this time of year, right? That awakening, coming out of winter, a time when, just because of the cold, the earth and the creatures of the earth and the plants all live in this dormant state, right? Many animals are in hibernation. And yet there's this moment we're kind of in right now where we're coming alive. And if we can just put out of our minds, those of us in Southern Arizona can put out of our minds for a moment that we have 100-degree weather coming very soon, and we could just kind of ignore that, and we can enjoy the warmth and enjoy the light and enjoy the visuals and the smells and the sounds of the earth awakening. April is also Earth Month, right? It started out as a day, and then we gave it a whole month. I think it's funny because it's like our whole lives are completely intertwined with the earth, so giving it like a day or even a month feels a little bit like, token gift or something. It would almost be like if we said, hey, new holiday, October 12th is living in a human body day. It's like, I don't think we need that. But the point I'm making is that there's a connection to the earth, friends, that I believe is essential to our well-being. It's essential to our development. And yet it's a connection that has been severed by modernity, by the way that we function in this modern world. Where in our culture today, so many of the things that are so important to us are things that we cannot even touch, things that aren't even physically real, right? Take, for example, something like money, right? I know there's physical money. Of course, that seems to be getting more and more phased out. But in essence, money is a symbol, right? It's conceptual. It's a representation of something that is an idea. But there is something very intangible and non-physical about money. Take, for example, the internet. Most of us rely on the internet for so much of our life and our work, and yet the internet isn't physical. It's not directly related to our physical human functioning. So much of our life is in abstraction, and we've put so much emphasis on that which is not physically real and de-emphasized the real, right? And it means that we've lost this connection to our planet. And so today, I want to invite you on a journey back to the earth, back to an awareness where we are part of, where we are from, we are of the earth. As Kathleen reminded us, that we are going back to the garden. And this idea, I think, in many ways is echoed by what Alan Watts says. I love this simple and yet profound shift. We do not come into this world, we come out of it, as if leaves from a tree, right? And this experience of being born into, that was the wrong one. Being born out of, right? I've been so indoctrinated, right? We come out of this world and we are birthed in these bodies, right? And these bodies are the vehicle through which we experience all life, all consciousness, right? And these bodies themselves, if we really take this to heart, these bodies themselves are nature. And yet, if we're being honest with ourselves, so often we treat our bodies as a means to an end, as a machine that in many ways is carrying around our brain, right? And our brain is kind of where all the action's at, right? But we don't recognize and we don't so often appreciate the fact that our body is lovingly supporting us at any given moment, that there is so much of what our body does and how it functions that we don't even think about minute to minute. Oh my, some glitchiness. See, it's like, forget the technology. It's all about the body, okay? It's all part of the plan. That was the point, I want to just explain a little bit of just some of the things and the processes that are happening inside our bodies that really moment to moment are miraculous and are keeping us alive and are keeping us high functioning, and yet in many ways go unnoticed. Here's one. Your brain and your gut communicate through a network of neurons, chemicals, and hormones. The trillions of bacteria in your gut, which we know as our microbiome, actually produce neurotransmitters like serotonin that influence your mood and mental health. So when you say that you have a gut feeling about something, you are speaking a lot more truth than you realize. How about this? Your cells are constantly talking to each other through complex signaling pathways involving hormones, neurotransmitters, and electrical impulses. This coordination allows everything from muscle movement to emotional responses to happen seamlessly. Now, I don't want you to think you're off the hook, right? Like next time you get upset or something happens and you're like, wow, that was weird out of nowhere. That was an outburst. You can't say, hey, it wasn't me. It was just my cells. My cells, you are your cells. So you're not off the hook there. All right, last one. Your immune system has a memory and learns to recognize pathogens over time. It's capable of identifying billions of possible threats and orchestrates a defense using specialized cells that adapt and change as needed. I want us to just take all this information and distill it in a way that we can really appreciate how amazing this all is. So I want to do a little bit of an analogy here. Work with me on this. Kind of imagine this in your mind's eye, okay? Imagine that you are trying to coordinate an entire city's worth of people, let's say 1 million individuals, all doing highly specialized tasks simultaneously without ever stopping and without any single leader orchestrating it. Each person knows their role and adjusts instantly to any changes around them, from a traffic jam to an emergency without anyone telling them what to do. Now, imagine that the probability of getting that city to function perfectly for just one day is like flipping a coin and getting heads 1 million times in a row. That's roughly the chance that every cell, organ, and system in your body will coordinate flawlessly to keep you alive at any given moment, right? And that's happening in this room right now. So friends, your body is a miracle, right? Or as John Mayer sang about 20-ish years ago, your body is a wonderland. I think he meant it in a little bit of a different way. But it stands true nonetheless. But as a result of all this incredible, background functioning, all these amazing processes that are coming together and are orchestrated in this seamless way, because of all that, you and I have this wonderful experience of life that we call consciousness, right? Which consciousness allows for everything. It allows for intimacy and relationship and connection and spiritual experiences, transcendent experiences. All of the wonderful things that we experience in this life are made possible through consciousness, which is made possible through your body performing all of these amazing functions. So perhaps we might start viewing our body less as a vehicle that is lugging our brain around and more as a community that is supporting you and that is allowing for this incredible experience of life, right? And allowing for consciousness. There are some who even take it a step further and they would say, yes, all of that is happening and it's incredible, and maybe it's a chicken or the egg situation. Maybe there is an aspect where the consciousness itself is also guiding all of these processes. Bruce Lipton is a biologist and author. He says, your body is a community of 50 trillion living cells, all working together in harmony. This is the power of a single consciousness guiding them. However you in your own heart and mind make that connection, however it shakes out for you, we can all agree that there is a powerful and profound connection between our body and our consciousness, or our body and our spirit, right? I'll give you an example. Just hold in your heart for a moment a transcendent or beautiful spiritual experience that you might have had. Maybe something recently, or maybe something life-defining and world-changing for you, but just hold that in your heart, right? And recognize in this moment that experience was made possible through your body, because of your body, because of all these incredible functions and processes that are happening without us even recognizing it, without us making it happen, right? Because the reality is, friends, many of us were taught, perhaps if you grew up religious, maybe even not, many of us were taught that our body is a problem, that our body is sinful. We were given this dichotomy where we were told that there is the flesh and there is the spirit, and the flesh is evil. And so we are on this journeys, right? I know I am, a journey of healing, right? These ideas that were ingrained in me, that I have to make this choice between one or the other, instead of seeing my body as a gift, right, through which I am able to experience life. And some of these ideas, they go way, way, way back, right? Some of these ideas are kind of come from some different interpretations of Judeo-Christian ideas found in the Bible, right? There was this group of early Christians, a sect of early Christianity. They called themselves the Gnostics, Gnostics. They were the Gnostics. Now, the Gnostics had some good ideas, right? Like we've talked before about this word gnosis, Gnosis, same root, right? And this idea of gnosis is that there is a deep spiritual understanding that kind of defies words, defies conventional wisdom, just knowing something because you know it, right? And so in many ways, the Gnostics, they believed in this level of spiritual wisdom and insight. They had some really good ideas. They also had some not so good ideas that we have inherited. So I want to play a little game. It's the first time, and I think this might stick. I'm going to call this game Thanks, No Thanks, okay? So Gnostics, thanks for some things and no thanks for some others. All right, first off, thanks, Gnostics. The Gnostics really popularized this idea that spirituality is about a personal experience. It's not about just something that someone else tells us is true, but our own understanding. Thank you, Gnostics. That's pretty good. All right. They also believed that the body is evil. No thank you, Gnostics. I don't like this one. That the body is evil, that the body is something to be overcome, that it is inherently a problem, right? It's interesting that they could hold these two ideas simultaneously. All right. Thank you, Gnostics. They believe that the divine was not simply something that existed outside of us, but something that was also within us. But at the same time, they believe that the world is a trap, that the world, like the body, the world is evil, and it is something that we need to transcend. The Gnostics believe that we should critique blind obedience, that we shouldn't believe something simply because someone in power tells us it's true, but that we should seek out, again, our own personal experience. I think that's a good idea. Thank you, Gnostics. But they believed also in something called the demiurge. They believed that the world and that our bodies were created by this demonic entity called the demiurge. And if this sounds like the, spoilers for the upcoming season of Stranger Things, you might be right. They held all of these ideas, right? And what's so interesting is that some of these ideas are helpful, some are not. And I think we can now, in 2025, say, thanks, no thanks. All right. Now, here's why this is important, okay? These views and aspects of these views have made their way into modern religion and into Western thought, right? And in many ways, regardless of your religious upbringing, we all kind of inherited aspects of these views. And in some ways, we are still recovering from this disconnect between the mind and the body, or the disconnect between us and the planet. And in some ways, I see us as victims of these ideas getting passed down generationally, but at the same rate, we can also be healers. We can also take this, ideas and essentially this trauma of this deep disconnect between us and the natural world, and we can do some repairing and healing on behalf of our ancestors. This idea that many of us were taught, that our body is a problem, we might shift and start to realize that our body is the solution, right? Or not that the body is in the way, but the body is the way. And maybe we might look at the earth in the same way, right? We might have this similar shift, that we might see the earth as that which is lovingly supporting us in the same way that our body is lovingly supporting us. That the trees are our lungs, right? That the trees provide the very oxygen we breathe. And so with each breath, we are being breathed by the planet. The rivers are our veins, right? Transporting nutrients, minerals, of course, the very water that we need for sustenance, as Bill's song so beautifully, he wrote that song, by the way, beautiful song about water, yeah. And it so beautifully captures the importance of water in our life and how it is, flows throughout this planet, giving everything, right? The food that we eat comes from the soil. It comes from other life. The sun that we need to survive is only, digestible and survivable and not harmful to us because of Earth's atmosphere. There are endless ways, friends, in which this planet is providing life for us. It is the foundation of our life. So we have this beautiful gift and this experience of consciousness, which is made possible through the body, right? Through the support of the body. And then the body is able to survive and thrive because of the support of the planet, right? So it's interesting how everything is wrapped up in each other. There's this deep sense of interconnection at the core of everything. A couple weeks ago, I was gone, you might have noticed, for a few weeks, and I had the opportunity to go on a nature retreat in Bolivia and deep in the South American jungle. And the thing about going to the jungle is that day one, you see the jungle as chaos, and you kind of think more about all the things that maybe want to kill you in the jungle, which is how, you kind of also feel moving to Southwest Arizona for the first, right in the beginning. But by day 7, I started to recognize a beautiful order amidst the chaos. It's not that the chaos disappears. The wild still gets to be wild, but you also get to recognize that there is a beautiful order beyond human comprehension, that there is something sacred and divine that begins to arise when you spend enough time in those spaces. You even begin to see reflections of yourself, your own personal experience, your own soul. You get to see that in nature if you reflect long enough. And so for me, in this, state of contemplation and reflection, I came upon, a phrase that has been helpful for me. It's a way that I've been thinking about my relationship to the planet. It's the title of today's message. And it's this simple phrase, the earth body, seeing ourselves as cells in the earth body, right? That we have these bodies and all these amazing things are happening to make life possible. And yet what's true inside is also true outside, right? That there's a community within where all these different cells are participating in these different roles and they come together and make these complex processes possible. And then on the outside of us, there are also all these different forms of life, also with their unique roles and making life possible for everyone else. And this recognition that we all have our own roles and we all have our own place in the web of life really means that no one is better than anyone else, right? Everything has its place, right? Its place in the earth body. That the earth is not something we are on, right? It's not something that is just real estate, but it's something we are. That all of life is our family. It's us, right? That we are the world, as if you remember that song from the 80s, right? Had a lot of celebrities and all that. And if you remember, it was like kind of a super group power ballad song. And everyone who was there was super excited to be a part of this, once in a lifetime event, except maybe one person. So that's Bob Dylan, and I can't think of the song "We Are the World" without thinking about how uncomfortable Bob Dylan was to be a part of it. I could see him thinking, like, I should never have agreed to this, I'm going to fire my manager. But I love the message of that song. We are the world, right? May we find some sense of kinship with the entire planet. May we see ourselves and our identity as one with this beautiful planet. And maybe this is a new perspective for us. Maybe it's an evolution of the ways in which we previously understood our relationship to the earth. Again, understandings that maybe were passed down to us, that we inherited. One such understanding comes from, again, like a Judeo-Christian worldview, specifically from the book of Genesis. And in this creation poem, God says to humans, there's this word, and it's basically often translated that humans were given dominion over the earth, right? And this word has often been mistranslated to create this understanding that humans have this free pass to have mastery over and to do whatever we want with the planet. But the ancient Hebrew for this word, often mistranslated this way, is the word rada, which is actually more accurately translated to mean stewardship and responsible caretaking. That we were meant to be a blessing to this planet, not a curse. And I think this illustrates the importance of language, the importance of words, the importance of the way in which we describe this connection, how much of an influence it has on how we actually live things out. There's an author, he calls himself an ecologian, right? Like a blending of the words ecological and theologian. And his name is Thomas Berry. And he also understands the importance of language and how we shape our own understanding. And he says this: our challenge is to create a new language, even a new sense of what it is to be human, in the presence of an earth community. I think this is a challenge that we all should be up for, and reclaiming our words, right? This is even for me why, the title of this message, The Earth Body, it's a word, it's a phrase that is helpful for me. It might not mean anything to you, but at least, we can do what we can as individuals to create our own language that helps us find that connection once again. And so if we kind of follow this thread, right, seeing the earth as our body, right, not just our physical body, but then we have the earth body, I want to wrestle with some of those implications for a moment, right? The first of which is that if we follow that thread, that the earth is also our body, then this illusion that we have, that we are separate from the planet, is really a textbook definition of unhealth. Okay, because when a cell in your body forgets its role, when it forgets its place in the larger community, when it refuses or is unwilling to see itself as part of a larger whole, what happens in your body is disease, quite literally dis-ease, right? A lack of flow in the body. And we look out at our world, and especially humanity, and what do we see? Rampant spiritual disease because of this lack of connection, this illusion that we are separated, right? The teacher Krishnamurti said, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And what are some symptoms of this sickness, right? Living in this world where, again, as I mentioned before, we live in a world of abstraction rather than the real. So things like bank accounts and your credit score and your social standing, right, are of immense value to us. And yet we've lost our connection to that river, that tree, that mountain, that cactus, and how we are connected with those things. And what's happened because of this? Well, here's an example. Because of this disconnection, we live in a world where some people have more money than they'll ever be able to spend in 100 lifetimes, and other people are hungry right now, right? It's a symptom of this spiritual dis-ease. The second implication of the earth as our body is that the more we turn the earth into profit, the more we take resources from the earth and try to convert that into money, the more we are essentially hacking away at our own limbs, okay? That there is a term, ecological suicide. And when we think about the arc and the journey that we are on as human beings, if we do not consider changing our ways and reevaluating our practices, we are moving in an unsustainable direction, right? We're moving in such a way where we cannot continue to take and take and take and take and expect that the resources will not run out and our very life, our very lungs, right, will give out. This very month, there was an executive order passed which allowed for the increase of logging on federal lands which were once protected. And it's just a reminder that those with the most power and those with the most money often do not understand how direct our correlation is, how direct our connection, this deep synthesis of us and the planet, right? How related we are, how it is us. There's a proverb from the indigenous Cree people. You may have heard this before. Only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish has been caught, and the last stream poisoned, will we realize we cannot eat money. I grew up, celebrating Hanukkah, and we have chocolate coins, and so I have tried to eat money. That's the only kind of money you can eat is chocolate coins. Other than that, it's true, you cannot eat money. But all jokes aside, indigenous spirituality, indigenous cosmology has understood this direct correlation between us using up the resources of the planet and our very health as human beings, our very well-being, in a deep way for thousands and thousands of years, right? That for indigenous people all over the world, it wasn't that the earth was seen through the lens of their religion, it's that the earth was essentially their religion in so many ways. And so we need to return to this wisdom rather than continuing down this path that we are on, which is inherently unsustainable. And if we follow this thread, then what we are really due for, friends, is an awakening. We're due for an awakening, right? In some circles, you might call this a come to Jesus moment, although I think for today, it's more of a come to Mother Earth moment. But the question is, what would that look like for an awakening back to our true nature and our true identity, right? What would it mean to be born again into our identity as the planet itself, as participants, as members, as part of the family and web of life? There's an author named Bill Plotkin who speaks in depth about rediscovering this connection and really it being a key to finding our own soul. And he calls this process ecological. awakening. He says eco-awakening is the process of shifting your identity from that of an isolated human individual to that of an ecological being interwoven with the community of life. An eco-awakening means seeing yourself as a participant in the natural world rather than a detached observer or exploiter. He goes on in another book to say that when people no longer understand they belong to the earth, they become dangerous to the earth. I think about our current ecological crises and really all of the crises we face as human beings, and they all seem to have their root in disconnection. Disconnection from each other, disconnection from our own humanity, and it starts with our understanding of our belonging to the planet. May we experience this eco-awakening. Now, you might be out there and you might say, okay, I'm tracking with you. I'm with you on all of this, but I live in a house, I work in an office, or I work from home. Most of the days I spend, either on the internet or at least in a man-made space. In other words, I can't be in nature all the time. How am I supposed to achieve that? And then, of course, you have us in the Southwest, right? And summer's coming, and you really can't be in nature all the time. But friends, my encouragement is this. Can we just start with our body, remembering that our body is nature, and our body is supporting us in unimaginable ways every moment? Essentially, your body is loving you with every pump of blood, with every breath that flows through your lungs. And the earth is doing the same thing, right? It's giving freely, always. No matter the harm that we do to it, it has not stopped giving. We often look to our religions for images and pictures of sacrificial and unconditional love, but it's right there in front of us, right? The earth is doing all of that. And may this understanding and recognition humble us that we are part of a larger whole, right? And maybe that even gives us a peace because we can relax that we are part of this larger flow of life. We don't need to have all the answers. We are part of something much, much greater than ourselves. So friends, I encourage you, take a walk. Not right now, but I mean go out there, take a walk, take a ride on your bike, do whatever it is to get out of nature, especially while the weather allows for it, which, this next week is really going to be perfect for that. And I encourage you in those moments to see yourself as part of this larger community of life, this larger earth body. And maybe sink into this reflection that as you move along and you walk through this planet, that you see the plants and you see the birds and the mountains, and really may you treat everything as though it is aware of you, just as you are aware of it, right? That you are in a communication. I'm going to close today with a benediction of sorts from an author named Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote the book Braiding Sweetgrass, a beautiful book of indigenous wisdom. And as we close, I ask that we just, reflect and really bring to our hearts in whatever way is practical for us and whatever way is real and doable for us, how we can begin to move and shift and orient ourselves towards this new understanding of our place on this planet. Let us walk through life in the humble knowledge that we are not the masters of creation, but part of its great dance. May we know the quiet dignity of mosses and the fierce grace of the river. May we listen to the stories the land tells us. And may our lives become a prayer of gratitude to the living world around us.